Is Microsoft fighting back against the Steam Deck? Should we be more worried about the ROG Ally? And this is my favorite new Steam Deck accessory. How's it going, everyone? Welcome to Deck Ready. This is my weekly news update. I've got a lot in the works here on the channel, so if you're new or you've been watching for a while and haven't subscribed, I'd appreciate it if you hit that red button and turned your notifications on for all. As for what I'm playing this week, I'm on a huge Star Wars kick after that last episode of The Mandalorian. It was just so good, and as someone who's watched Clone Wars and watched Rebels and kept up with all the Star Wars lore, it was really cool seeing a lot of this stuff come together this season that I've been watching and experiencing for like over a decade. So because of that, I've been trying out a bunch of different Star Wars games. I tried out the Old Republic and it works. It's just not a good experience on the deck. There is a pretty solid community layout. It was just like, at that point, I'd rather just play it on my laptop on my couch or something. But I also tried Star Wars Empire at War, and man, that game is made for the Steam Deck. It runs at max settings perfectly at 60 FPS because it's a like older game. It looks really good still though on the smaller screen. It's easy to control with the trackpads, and it gets like 3 to 4 hours of battery life. So I sat there on my couch watching horror movies all day Sunday, just blasting through that game. It's a little tough. I'm not an RTS guy, but it was a lot of fun. And finally, I've been playing Jedi Fallen Order. I'm going to shout out my friends at Steam Deck HQ for the settings on this one. Just follow their guide because it's perfect and it eliminates 99% of the stuttering. You can get this game running at 40 Hertz, 40 FPS, get a solid couple hours of battery life out of it, and there's just enough time before Jedi Survivor to get through it. So that's two Star Wars recommendations for you on the Steam Deck. Next up, let's talk about my new favorite accessory for the Steam Deck. Look, I have long hair, and when I wear over-the-ear headphones, it like pushes down my hair. It looks kind of weird. And also on this side, my left side, my hair, there's no real way to get the ear cup to not be covered by hair. So I'm more of an earbud guy, and one of the biggest issues with being a PC gamer and using earbuds or liking earbuds is Bluetooth latency. Now, of course, there are some good wired options out there still, but those are kind of going the way of the dinosaur lately, mainly because no one really uses corded earbuds anymore. But I have found the solution, which is awesome. It was right under my nose. It's the Razer Hammerhead True Wireless Pros, and I bought these with my own money, so this is truly an unbiased review. Now, there are actually 3 different versions of these headphones. So you can get the Hyperspeed version, which covers 2. That is like a PS5 version in white and an Xbox version in black. Those both come with a dongle that makes it so you don't need to use Bluetooth to connect to your console, but if you're connecting to PC, you can use the dongle or Bluetooth. Those ones are a little more expensive, and these, the True Wireless Pro, they don't have a dongle, but they do still have Bluetooth and a low latency gaming mode. I think they said it's like 60 milliseconds. The point is, when you turn on that gaming mode, you really don't notice the latency at all, to the point where it's like not even there, which is the best feature on these headphones. And if you want to use them to listen to music, you can turn that gaming mode off and get better audio quality from your phone, which again, pretty cool. And I gotta say, as someone who's tried out a ton of different earbuds over the years, the original AirPods, AirPods Pro, Sony XM4s, the original version of the Razer Hammerhead wireless headphones, these are honestly the best sounding earbuds I've ever had. Their bass boosted like EQ setting you can use in the app is really cool if you listen to a lot of like heavy drum beat music like I do, but also for games, if you just want to use the THX sound they have built in. They have everything labeled THX now from Razer because Razer owns THX. It sounds really good, and without latency, it's great. So these used to be $200, but they're on sale right now from Razer, and I asked why, kind of like maybe thinking they might have a new version coming out, and the people who are working there said it's really because the new Hyperspeed is like more popular, so they're not really focusing on these more expensive PC ones anymore, and because of that, they were on sale for $100, which is $50 cheaper than the Hyperspeed. So yeah, I've used these with the Steam Deck all weekend long. I've used them with my main gaming PC. I've used them with my phone. They switch super well. I give these a wholehearted recommendation. I'll have them linked down in the description. If you use those links, I get a little bit of a kickback. But yeah, if you're someone like me who really prefers earbuds to over-the-ear headphones, I cannot recommend these enough. And again, bought them with my own money, so this is a truly unbiased review. Next up, we got to talk about the ROG Ally because there have been so many leaks surrounding this device. Now, the first one that came out today is basically a spec sheet for the entire handheld, and it looks pretty dang cool. So the most interesting thing I saw is that Asus is teaming up with AMD, just like Valve did for the Steam Deck, and they have a new chip that's custom for the ROG Ally. That's the Z1. Now, they say this thing is more powerful than the Steam Deck. We'll just have to wait and see. I still think it's going to be tough to drive games at 1080p on a handheld regardless of how powerful the chip is, especially if they want the battery to last more than 30 minutes. The spec sheet also says it has 16 gigabytes of RAM, it's got Dolby Atmos support, it's got pretty much everything you would expect all the way up to a 512 gigabyte SSD and a micro SD card slot. So this thing really is, just like on paper, very competitive with the Steam Deck, which is cool. And if the rumors are to be believed, because of their agreement with AMD or something they've been able to figure out over at Asus, this will be price competitive to some extent with the Steam Deck. The rumor I heard is that for the 512 gigabyte model, it's going to be around $650, which is only a little bit more than what you're paying for the same storage on the Steam Deck. And I'd really be curious how they were able to finagle that, having it be more powerful, because that's pretty crazy, right? And that's been the problem with every Windows competitor to the Steam Deck, whether it's the Aya, the One X player, no matter what you throw at this device, they're always more expensive, and sometimes they run games not as well as the Steam Deck because they can't subsidize the parts in this thing. Valve is selling the Steam Deck at a loss because they're making up all of that money they lose on each Steam Deck with people buying games on Steam. And even though you can install the Epic Game Store, you can install a GOG, you can install Ubisoft Launcher or EA's app, whatever you want to use to download games, at the end of the day, the easiest experience you can get on the Steam Deck is just buying games on Steam. And with Steam sales, the ability to get keys online, X, Y, and Z, you're probably going to default 9 times out of 10 to buying games on Steam, especially for something like the Steam Deck. It's like the classic model that every console manufacturer has used for a long time now, whether it's Sony, Nintendo, or Microsoft. They love when you buy games digitally on their stores because A, they don't have to produce a physical game, and B, if it's a first-party game, they're getting 100% of the revenue. If it's a third-party game, they're getting 30% of the revenue just for selling you that game. That's the business model of Steam, and that's basically why Valve has put out less and less games as time has gone on. They're just raking in so much money on Steam. But if Asus really has figured out how to get this thing to the same or similar price point as the most expensive Steam Deck, I think that really makes it a viable competitor to this device. And I think it makes a real issue for Valve when it comes to online games like Destiny 2, Dead by Daylight, and pretty much any other game that uses easy anti-cheat or BattlEye. I mean, even Fortnite does not work natively on the Steam Deck unless you're running Windows. And if you're using this ROG Ally, I'm pretty positive that that thing will be able to run all of these games. Now, Bungie could turn around and say, hey, we don't trust the version of Windows this ROG Ally is running, we're going to block it there too, but I honestly doubt they would do that because their biggest platform right now is Steam. Like, Destiny 2 is one of the most played games on Steam, and it's already crazy that they don't allow it on the Steam Deck. So if the big barrier there truly is the whole SteamOS 3.0 being built on Linux thing, having a viable option in the ROG Ally that's around the same price, that's going to make people maybe stop and consider for a second when they're looking at buying a Steam Deck versus this Asus device. The big difference though, obviously, is that Windows just truly isn't optimized at this point for a handheld, and no matter what tweaks you really throw at it, you're really going to have worse battery life across the board than what you would have using SteamOS 3.0 on the Steam Deck. And that's not to say that the Steam Deck's battery is good, because we all know that thing really chews through battery if you're playing anything that's less than 10 years old, and even some older games really chew through battery to the point where it's like, dang, you really need to have an extra battery bank or charger handy. And if you're looking at the ROG Ally, this thing running Windows 11, this thing having a high frame rate 1080p screen, this thing having 16 gigabytes of RAM and a more powerful chip and Dolby Atmos and all these like high-end PC features, this thing is definitely going to chew through battery very quick, and I think it's going to heat up pretty dang fast. They do say they're including their Armory Crate app, which, like, if you've ever had an ROG computer, it's basically the same as Razer Synapse. It lets you like control the power plan of the PC with one click. I've had 2 Asus laptops. I had a crazy 2080 one where the bottom lifted off. I was using it when I worked at Austin Evans' place. And I also bought a Zephyrus G14, but I had to return it because it was blue screening. Like, the graphics card was fried out of the box and they didn't have another one. So I didn't really have much experience with that, but ROG's Armory Crate works really well. I think you're going to need to keep that thing at balanced or silent a lot of the time, especially when you're playing indie games, because yeah, this thing is absolutely going to chew through battery. And that brings us to our last news story of the day though, which is that Microsoft does seem to be taking the whole handheld PC initiative seriously. I mean, looking at all of these different devices that have come out over the past year, it's kind of hard to see why they wouldn't want to. It's just nice to see it get some thought. So during a recent hackathon at Microsoft, a UX designer named Dorothy Feng was able to get a cool handheld interface created and running on a Windows handheld. And when you're using the this UX that she came up with, you can launch games from Steam, PC Game Pass, EA Play, Epic Game Store, and more. And at the end of this hackathon, they got it to a point where it was installing drivers and services super quickly right when you boot it up for the first time. You could launch games directly from the interface, and controllers worked right out of the box, including the built-in ones that have had issues with Windows in the past. And at the end of the video, there is a call to action for developers to get serious about handheld gaming on Windows, which makes a lot of sense. People really enjoy handheld gaming. We're at a point in 2023 where you can build a viable Windows handheld that plays games that people really love on PC, like Destiny 2, for example. And Microsoft, for the most part, has kind of been hands off with all of this, right? Like, there are all these different brands like Aya, like 1xPlayer, who are making dedicated Windows handhelds. I mean, even GPD, they've been making Windows handhelds for a really long time, and it seems like Microsoft has kind of just ignored all of this stuff happening. But now, knowing that 3 million Steam Decks are going to be sold by the end of the year, Microsoft is probably looking at this and saying, hey, there's a lot of money to be made here. I mean, obviously, that's a great incentive for people to subscribe to Game Pass if they can run the games natively on their actual handheld versus streaming them to the device, which is what you can do now on the Steam Deck if you're using SteamOS 3.0. I mean, of course, you could just install Windows on the Steam Deck, but that's kind of an involved process, whether you want to use a micro SD card, you want to install it in place of SteamOS to the actual Steam Deck's SSD. There's always some big caveat when you're working with that now, and we still have no word from Valve on whether or not we're going to get this whole dual boot launcher that they've been working on since the Steam Deck came out for over a year now. So yeah, if the ROG Ally does come out and it's able to run a version of Windows that has this awesome new interface at least teased in it, or you could use a preview build or something like that, it's competitive with the Steam Deck in terms of price, and most importantly, it doesn't have the issues running these big online games like Destiny 2 that the Steam Deck has right now, I think Valve does have a competitor there, and I'd be curious to see how they would combat it. I would hope that they would just go to Epic Games or go to Bungie and say, look, what do we have to do to prove to you that SteamOS is secure enough to run these games? More importantly with Destiny, because that one's actually on Steam, and then they could kind of figure it out from top to bottom. Now, of course, Sony does have an investment in Epic Games. They also own Bungie, and there have been rumors flying around for a long time now that there is a mandate from Epic where they're saying, look, Sony, you're invested in us, make sure Bungie doesn't get this game running on the Steam Deck. I just personally don't believe that anything that nefarious is going on, but if the news came out that the rumors were true, I guess I wouldn't be shocked. But regardless, it is kind of cool to see competition springing up in this Windows handheld space, because the more that we see handhelds becoming dominant in the market, the longer they're going to stick around and the more innovation is going to come from that. I mean, if we get more handhelds out there like the ROG Ally and the Steam Deck, where a lot of people are adopting them, we'll see more and more developers actually pay attention to these things when they're developing games, and we won't have to wait till a game comes out to figure out if it runs on Steam Deck or not. But that's all I've got for you guys today. Make sure you let me know what you think down in the comments below. And as always, my name is Jimmy Champagne, and I'll see you in the next one. Shape on.